Good morning, everybody. Hope you are happy and fine there, resting, relaxing, and enjoying your holiday. Here in India, for many of us, it's a festive season, a season of great and grand festivals. We have just celebrated Navratris, Dashera, and we are going to celebrate Diwali, the festival of lights. In this festive season, today's morning has got a special importance. It's a special morning one, I will tell you. Today's morning marks beginning of the day, Sunday, beginning of the week, first week, and beginning of the month. If we note that we have just celebrated 2 days ago, Sharad Purnima. Sharad is the Ritu, and Purnima is the completion of the month and Ritu both. Now we are into Hemant Ritu and Kartika month, Kartik Masha, the 2 days of Kartika. Such is the importance of the day and the morning. And in this morning, we at Indology Foundation have brought the long awaited presentation and talk on the origins of an investigative study on the origins of Hindu Saptaha and European Week. So we are going to have it. We have prepared a very nice video full of evidences. Certain evidences are coming for the first time in the last 160 years of history of Indology. Okay, so bear with me. I'm going to share the presentation. Let me put it on the display mode. Let us begin. In your screen, what you watch is our traditional Indian Panchanga. This is published by a press near Ujjaini, the ancient seat of our astronomy. I wanted you to have a look of it. Be acquainted with it because the Panchangas are getting obsolete. We are more familiar with the calendars. Other calendar, our Indian Hindi calendars have got some elements of the Panchanga as well. But Panchangas are getting obsolete. Why? Panchangas have got certain amount of astronomy that is must for us if we want to preserve our tradition. Here is the slide that I have especially prepared for you because this slide has got potential to change the world perception of our ancient civilization. What you watch on your screen is a mantra of Rigveda, which tells us in a prayer, in a part of the prayer, that the world inhabited by us is also a world on move. It was told in the period when entire world, all other civilizations and cultures believed the earth is static, flat, and the world moves around the earth. But our rishis, our ancient seers has got the vision. They could visualize that earth is not the seat of the world. The entire world, including the earth, moves around something. So they created two words, Vishwam, the world inhabited by us, and the world which is on the move. Two aspects of the property, two aspects of the world they knew, and it is expressed in this mantra. Such is the importance of this mantra. We are the first in the world to understand our world is on the move. And the importance grows further if we remember that it was the German philosopher Immanuel Kant who for the first time proposed that the sun and all the stars have come from a rotating gaseous disk of dust. And after 175 or maybe 180 years after him, only in 1918, it was made possible for Harlow Shapley to discover that all the stars, including sun, make a round of the galactic center. And our sun, including our solar system, is located 30,000 light years away from the galactic center. I tell you, the big year, our big year, as we found in our part of our studies, the Kalpa, the great big year of Hindu cosmology, is nothing but the measure of suns round, a complete round of the sun around the galactic center. I have calculated the period taken by sun while making a round of the galactic center in our cosmology, that is compatible with what latest science suggests to us. So it is often said that you Hindus, you people claim when something is discovered by the West or the science. But here we are making first discovery ourselves at Indology Foundation that the Kalpa is the year, is the length of the period taken by sun along with the entire solar system while making a complete round of the galactic center. You can also calculate. If you want, I will let you know. Before we move further, I want you to understand the important premises and the statement of the problem also. I have taken it from the world-renowned historian of astronomy, the world astronomy, Otto Naugbauer, who lived for 101 years. His age, 100 plus years of age, also makes a reference to our talk. I will let you know what is that. So Naugbauer clearly says that the Greek occupation of the Punjab, that means the invasion of Alexander, should have brought astronomical knowledge to India, but that is not likely, not very likely. Greeks themselves at that period seem not to have had any knowledge of the mathematical astronomy. Mind it, Greeks did not have adequate knowledge of mathematical astronomy, that means spherical trigonometry. Now the statement of the problem. He underlines that Western astronomy impacted India via Greek astrological texts, operating with Babylonian arithmetical methods. Correct? Now, where is the problem? If you paraphrase his statement, you would understand that he, in a way, denies the indigenous origin of astronomy or the astrology put together Jyotish in our tradition. There is a denial. It's a statement of denial that India, in Indian tradition, Jyotish may not have its own independent indigenous origin, right? And the second part of his statement is that the first Sanskrit astronomical treatises were written in late 5th and 6th century CE, notably the Aryabhatiya and the Panch Siddhantika of Varamihira. Aryabhatiya was written by Aryabhat, the great astronomer of India. You understood? I guess you have understood it properly. And now it is to grasp the certain basics, because these basics are important while we calculate the past, a particular event of the past. So we should have an eye of it. Spring equinox around March 21st and 22nd, autumnal equinox around September 21st and 22nd, summer solstice, which is called Mahaprahar in Vishnu Dharmottar Purana, that also occurs around June 21st and 2nd, and winter solstice, Kalika Purana and others, it is mentioned, and it also occurs around December 21st and 22nd. I tell you, there is a coincidence that for Indology Foundation, that we had one of the largest talk, most important talk on the same day of June 21st, in which international scholars like Dr. Nicholas Kajanas from the Greece participated, as well as a battery of the scholars participated in that talk. So it is all about it. I also want you to understand that seasons occur in northern and southern hemisphere of the earth exactly in the reverse order. When we have summer, they have winter. When they have summer, we have winter, right? So now how this issue got created? What is the origin of the that I explained in the premises? Actually, all the doubts on our Indian tradition of Jyotish, the doubts on the antiquity of the traditional Jyotish, indigenous Jyotish, were created with the translation of Surya Siddhanta. With the translation of Surya Siddhanta. Not only that, the early translation of Surya Siddhanta, which happened 1860, it was done by Ebenezer Burgess, and not only by him alone, but also by Bapu Dev Shastri, the Indian scholar. He also did a translation from Sanskrit to English in the same year of 1860. With these translations, when the European scholars encountered a mention of Yavana, a mention to Their Yavanapuri, which is identified later on a later day as Alexandria, and the length of the year taken in the Surya Siddhanta by Varahamihir, that matches with the particularly the Romak Siddhanta taken by Varahamihir, that matches with the length of the year computed by Hipparchus, the first century astronomer of Greece. All such doubts got created. Our scholars like Bapudev Shastri, who translated Surya Siddhanta, he did a wonderful job, but he does not discuss the historicity, antiquity, and the origins of Surya Siddhanta, how this wonderful treatise, astronomical treatise, came up. That is the problem with the early Indian scholars. They were much focused on the content, not the premise, the background of the content. Later on, George Thibault and Sudhakar Dwivedi, they also they worked together to translate Surya Siddhanta in 1889 with additional set of information, more elaborated comments and suggestions, their studies. And then Mr. N. Chidambaram Iyer, who translated in 1884 the Brihad Jatak Samhita, another treatise prepared by Varahamihira. Varahamihira was Varahamihira was a gifted person, a gifted astronomer, Jyotisi. He knew astronomy, he knew astrology, he knew Sanskrit as well. His writing is very nice. He used a beautiful Sanskrit while explaining his theory. So he was a gifted personality, but intent was not nice. There was some problem in the intent. So let us know about him. Varamira was born in a Magi priest family. His father was Aditya Dasha and the mother was Indumati. Somewhere also it is written the name of the mother was Satyavati. He was born in their late 50s and his birth begins with a mythological background. It is said that he was born with the blessings of sun god, normal in India. But the similar blessings were not required for Aryabhatta, sun god's blessings, or the Brahmagupta or other astronomers of the ancient past. His village, now known as the Kapitha, who informed us? It was the Huansang, a 7th century Chinese pilgrim, who informs us that the ancient name of modern Sankisa was the Kapitha. Kapitha was a popular Buddhist place. Samrat Asoka erected a pillar there. Huansang suggests that there around 4,000 monks were staying in Kapitha or the Sankisa. There were many monasteries, many Buddhist monasteries there. And that is also a place where Lord Buddha manifested one of the first miracles. Normally it is understood and argued, propagated that Lord Buddha remained away from creating mythologies, creating miracles, but there is another aspect of his personality that it is said by his followers that he also created miracles, and the seat of the miracle, one of the seat of the miracles was Kapitha along with the Sravasti. He created certain miracles in Sravasti, particularly with, that relates to death of his cousin brother. Okay, so we are not going into miracles of Buddha. We are focused on today's talk. What was the time when Varahamihira was living on the earth? Varahamihira himself informs us that he has been contemporary to Avanti's king Dravyavardhan. He cites him while discussing the expeditions of kings in his treatise called Brihad Jataka, the astrological work. Okay, we have certain amount of very interesting information how Magis have migrated to India. We know that the Puranic legend that says to cure Samba, the son of Bhagwan Krishna and Jambavati, Magi priests were invited from the eastern Iran. 18 families of the Magi priests were invited because nobody knew in that region to how to perform the sacrifices, the rites for the sun god. So those 18 families of the 18 families of the Magis came, and the first place where they got settled was called Mulsthan, which is now nowadays nowadays known as Multan. So Multan is the Mulsthan. We have further, historical information that was a Puranic legend, but we have certain endorsements of this legend from the historical record. The same Huen Sang mentions in 7th century in Multan there is a large popular sun temple where a golden image of the sun god is enshrined, that is installed. Further, uh, Al-Biruni, he also informs us that in the Multan, the eyes of the image of the sun is red ruby, a precious stone. And he also mentions, not only that, he also adds that the Mulsthan Yatra is performed by the devotees who believed in the sun worship. So Puranic legend gets vindicated by the further day, on a later days historical information of the pilgrims and scholars like Al-Biruni. Okay. Not only that, before moving to next slide, I am not um, uh, uh, I'm not able to restrain my temptation to mention the Ptolemy. Ptolemy, the Greek scholar of astronomy and astrology, in his work on the world geography, the world geology, he mentions the Magis were spread as far south as Mount Betigo. That is nowadays called Southern Kailasha. He says he notes good presence of Magi Brahmins in Southern Kailasha, that is in Tamil Nadu, Mount Betigo. I think the Tamil name of his Mount Bhitai or something that I will have to recheck. But Mount Betigo is what he mentioned. Also, Magi's presence is noted in a 11th century copper inscription of Gaya district, where the person who writes that inscription informs that Magis are present. It's a stronghold of Magis. So Magis came to India. When they came around 6th century BCE, historically, apart from keeping apart the Puranic legend. When the Cyrus I, the Iranian Persian king, he annexed the western part of Indus River. Okay, and then they kept coming to India, as the account of Wen Sang and Al-Biruni tells us. Understanding Varahamihira more, his time, he has left lot of astronomical markers, the internal markers, which tells about the time he was living. One of the markers I have used because it involves a bit of astronomy and the mathematics. He informs us that in the ancient days, earlier, the southern course of sun, Dakshinayan used to start in the middle of the Aslesha Nakshatra, but at his time, when he was living, the Dakshinayana occurs in the beginning of the Punarvashu. So from Aslesha to Punarvashu, in between these two nakshatras, a complete nakshatra Pushya falls. We know that each nakshatra's measure is 13.20 degree, 13 degrees and 20 minutes. And as per the information we have, middle of the Aslesha, that means half. So we take half of 30.20 degrees, which is 7.10 degrees. Put together, it is 20.30 degrees. But the commentator of Varahamira's work, the Marichi. Many people may not be knowing about Marichi, but he commented elaborately on Varahamira's work. And he also suggested a different aspect of our astronomical yugas, the Kali Yuga, the large yugas, Kali Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, Treta, and Satya Yuga, their length. He suggests that there are sub yugas, up yugas also. A circle of smaller yugas form the larger yugas. That's the very important information we receive from the Marichi. So Marichi says there is an anomaly, Truti. So I have included 2 degrees difference as Truti to balance out this Truti or the anomaly. Put together it is 20.30 degrees because for the bare eye observations minimum 2 degrees difference is required. You know, Nakshatra's boundary, Nakshatra does not have a demarcated boundary. It's a perception, and the perception is measured by the placement of the Yog Tara, the reference taken in the ancient time to understand the boundary, the visual boundary, the perceptual boundary, the size of the nakshatra. So it requires minimum 2 degrees or 1.5 degrees difference. So therefore, 2 degrees quite justified. So put together, it comes to 1605 years. 1605 years of the Vedanga Jyotish of Lagadha, because the middle of the Aslesha is the time when Lagadha was creating his Vedanga Jyotish, in which we have 5 years of Yuga system. That is what we witness. And we know that Lagadha used to live in 12th century BCE. There are different opinions. We can have a data of 500 years between 1150 BCE and 1200 BCE. Sorry. Al-Biruni, he also informs us that Panch Siddhantika was written 525 or 526 years before him, and a commentator of Varahamihira, he informs us that Varahamihira died in 509 Shaka Era, adding 78 Salivahan Shaka. Adding 78 years further, it comes to 587 Common Era. Correct? So we can have a qualified, clear estimate when Varahamihira used to live here on the Avantika, Ujjaini. Also, we cannot pull back his date because he came to he existed after the Aryabhatta. He mentions Aryabhatta's name in his work Panch Siddhantika, so he cannot be placed before Aryabhatta. And Aryabhatta, we know, 3600 years after the Kali Yuga, which is 476 Common Era. 476. So Varahamihira cannot be placed before 476. No Krita Yuga. Anyway, Varahamihira started his career. I will come to the career part later, but before that, I wanted you to understand how much Varahamihira was influenced by the Yavanas. Actually, he lived under strong Yavana influences, which can be understood with his citations. In the second chapter of his work, Vidya Sangita, he underlines, Mleksha hi Yavanas teshu samyak sastram idam stitam. Those Mlekshas who have a steady knowledge of the Shastras, samyak, steady knowledge of Jyotish Shastra, regarded equal to rishis. So he recognizes their knowledge, he admires them, and then he looks down upon the our Indian scholars, Brahmanas. He says, how greatly the Brahmanas, the Vipra, Dvija, how greatly the Dvija, the Brahmanas shall be regarded if they also know the divine Jyotish Shastra. So that means what indirectly he points out, Indians, the Dvijas, do not know Jyotish Shastra equal to the knowledge that is possessed by Yavanas. We are one of the most tolerant culture of the world. Even this is fine. But what unfortunate thing that Varahamihira has done is in the list of Jyotish founders, list of our Jyotish tradition founders, he included Yavana, the word Yavana. That was nowhere required. It's called corruption. If he was so much influenced with the Yavana's knowledge of Jyotish or the astronomy, he could have added another set of slokas, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever was satisfying to him, but he had no right to interpolate the word Yavana in the list of founders of Vedanga Jyotish. You see, I have underlined here in the red box, you can see Chavano Yavano Garga Kasyapas Parashara. He places Yavana before Garg, Kashyap, and Parashara. And this is the point there from entire Indian antiquity got impacted, because we know about the Puranas. Puranas are the Purana Navati. Means Puranas are a text which are updated every time to make them recent, the new one. Puranas were never uh, a text which was closed in certain antiquity. Every era, the Puranas were getting updated. That is the good feature, a beautiful feature, important feature of our tradition, that we had such a living tradition of updation of our history or the religious scriptures. No other part of the world you will find it, a living tradition of updating the text. Here, world fights for the integrity, a perceived integrity, but we are the people in India who realize that a history and the Puran needs continuous updation. In our present time, this is only our a great historian of the JNU, Madam Romila Thapar, who does not want the updation of the history. She coined a very derogatory word, the revisionist. She even does not want the revisions into the history written by them for their ideology, suiting to their ideology, the leftist ideology or the communist ideology. They want it to be fixed. Whatever they have perceived, that should be taken as the final. No updation. But we are a different people, different culture, and we had this tradition of updating our history, updating our narrative that is recorded in the Puranas. Okay, so here I wanted to point out this corruption, this interpolation introduced by Varahamihira into Vedic tradition of Vedanga Jyotish, where from the same idea has crept into, it went into the books of the Puranas, and everywhere we find the mention to Yavana. And the scholars who who are not much aware of the whole thing, when they find the word Yavana mentioned there, so they first, what their reaction, the first reaction of theirs is to not consider the longest antiquity of the text. They start making it is all conceived on a later day after interaction with the Yavanas or the Greeks. This is the big problem created with the carelessness of this Persian Varahamihira. And for him, he created a mythology. He created his career as a Jyotishi by creating a mythology. He created a mythological figure called Mahasura Maya. In the second verse of Surya Siddhanta, Chanda Shloka, he said, Alpa aviste tu krite maya nama Mahasura. Some Mahasura Maya who did strict penance and pleased the sun god Vivaswan. Vivaswan deputed his deputy, the shadow representative of the sun god, and through this deputy, he received the knowledge. What knowledge? Varahamihira does not explain. In the Surya Siddhanta, a lot of spherical trigonometry is explained with the sine and cosine series while calculating the sun's azimuthal, the ascendance of the sun while in the daytime, and for that the sine series is required. So, but why he did this? Why he created this kind of mythology? This sine series is not expected to known in that long longevity, which some of our friends calculate to be the 16,000 BCE, the period of 16,000 BCE or 15,000 BCE, all wild claims, or some other person has come up suggesting 6,000 BCE. So while working for the rebuilding of our historical narrative of science, technology, astronomy, you call it by any name, we require to have holistic view, complete study. Unfortunately, it's not being done, and our friends, though with the good intent, they are relying on the mythological information, the piece of information, without investigating. So that's why we at Indology Foundation decided to do an investigational study. Anyway, so Mayasur received knowledge from the Vivaswan through his deputy, and after that, nobody knows what happened to that knowledge, because our Purans, our Vedas, Puranas, Brahmana Granthas, nowhere it is mentioned that Mayasur received the astronomical knowledge from the Vivaswan. In none of the Puranas you will find an attestation. It is only the first time we received this claim from the Varahamihira, but Varahamihira forgets justifying it. He provides a contradictory information by the 8th number. By the time you reach 8th shloka of the same text, in the first two slokas he creates a mythology, but by the time of 8th shloka he contradicts it. So the astronomical first time the astronomical knowledge was received by Mahasur Maya, but by the 8th shloka it is said Purvam Edukrikam. Even before this Mayasur, also the knowledge was given. And not only that, Yuge Yuge Maharshinam, every Yuga, Maharshinam, our rishis, Maharshis received the same knowledge from the sun god Vivaswan. In the same pattern of the Bhagwan Krishna's Geeta, Yuge Yuge Bhavishyami. Right? Yuge Yuge Maharshinam. What this is, actually it's a mythology, unfounded mythology. And we know, if we remember that same Mayasur marries his daughter Mandodari to Ravan in the Treta Yuga, and in the Dwapar, in the same Surya Siddhanta, when he discusses the making of the universe, the world, he refers to Bhagwan Krishna as Vasudev, then Sankarshan, the Balbhadra or Baldav, and then other members of Bhagavan Krishna's family. So it clearly says not in the beginning of, never in the beginning of the, never in the Krita Yuga, the last part of the Krita Yuga or the Sat Yuga, but probably in the Dwapar Yuga, this astronomical knowledge unfolded in India, and that knowledge is used by, through the tradition, received and used by Varahamihira, but still he created a mythology. Why he created a mythology? Might be he wanted to achieve early recognition, success, popularity, and the acclamation of the elite of that period. He was not the only Jyotishi or the astronomer of that period. Before him, dozens of Jyotishis occurred. Varahamihira was there. Aryabhatta was there, and so many others there. So many Jyotishis were there. I will let you know who were there, who were others. So what happened? Something more about on this mythology created by Varahamihira. Varahamihira created his career by creating a mythology, but later on we find he himself becoming a mythological figure in his tradition of Surya Siddhanta. Surya Siddhanta became a tradition. We have to understand that Varahamihira was neither an innovator nor the inventor. He was a good aggregator. He collected the information available to him, the science series from Aryabhatta, other information from the Vedanta Jyotish tradition, certain things, certain elements of astronomy, which he believed to be true from the Yavanas, from the work of Hipparchus and Ptolemy, and then he made an amalgamation of of everything, and this is how this Surya Siddhanta came in the form of what we have today. His commentator, uh, uh, um, his commentator, what is his name? In the ninth century, informs us that Varahamihira was a incarnation of the sun god himself. Then in another work called Jyotish Chandrodaya, which was done in the Kerala, also it is said that he is an Ansavatara of the same Vivaswan, the sun god. So he, how he begins. He begins with creating a story that he is born with the blessings of sun, and this blessings, the element of the blessings, grows further, and he becomes the god in his tradition. Such is the development of the mythology. That's why uh, in the matters of science, the mythology should not be used, because it is the curiosity that gives birth to science, and science creates more curiosity, and then it grows further. Curiosity, science. But if you use mythology to feed the curiosity, there is a full stop. It ends. Why? Mythology creates pleasure, the delight. People like to enjoy. And with that enjoyment, no further space remains for creating further queries. Right? So that is the problem that we have to understand. So I again request our friends, those who are active and committed for rebuilding the history of our Jyotish tradition or the astronomical traditions, please stay away from illogically justifying the mythologies. Do a proper job, do investigations like we do. Varamira, Varamira also interpolated the Greek idea of trepidation. Before Varamira, it was introduced in Greece, in the Greece occupation of the uh, uh, of the Egyptian colony Alexandria in 380 CE by the person called Theon. So this is a very unfortunate for a person of the stature of Varahamihira, who knows the earth makes a round of the sun. According to this theory of trepidation, when sun starts its journey around the when earth starts its journey around the sun, it does not reach on the point of reference where from the journey started. It delays by 20 minutes. That is called the precession. And this precession, in our tradition, this precession is marked on the day of equinox. That's why it is called precession of equinox. Every year, Earth delays its travel by 20 minutes and keeps adding upon it. It gets appended every year, 20 minutes or something. So the rate of precession of equinox is important for us for rightly calculation of the longitudes, planetary trigonometry. We cannot ascertain accurately the position of the planets, sun, moon, everything. According to Varahamihira, this amount of trepidation is limited by 27 degrees on the one side and also on the other side. 27 degrees here and 27 degrees there. Put together 54 degrees. But in order to make a complete circle, it extends up to 108 degrees. You can understand 27 by 4. Okay. Whereas we know any delta, any gap, whether 20 minutes or whatever of any length, any gap created in a circle will eventually form another circle out of the circle. It cannot function like a pendulum, the trepidation. But Varahamihira believed it, he introduced it, and it impacted our Vedanga Jyotish in a very big way. Yes, in order to realize the impact, it requires a period of at least 100 years, 120 years, 150 years. So what happened? Our astronomical or geodesy calculation of the longitudes of the azimuthal position of the sun and other planets started falling apart. So our astronomers of the who happened after the Varahamihira, they had to do the beat sanskara to adjust to calculate it correctly. They still use the Surya Siddhantic methods, but they had to go for correction. And the first correction comes from the Govind Swami in 830 Common Era, who corrected this rate of precession of equinox by zero point 0.4 degrees per year. Later on, Manjula, who took it 0.60, 0.6 degrees, 0 degrees, and then Bhaskaracharya, he also adjusted it to 0.60 degrees. So this sort of adjustment needed after every 50 and 100 years. And that's why not only this, Varahamihira also introduced certain incorrect predictive uh, uh, predictive rules. For that, he receives a pungent criticism from the Bhattotpala. Bhattotpala, who was a contemporary to King Emperor Hers, he condemns Varahamihira for having introduced the predictive rules of Yavanas into Vedanta Jyotish. Later on, even he is condemned by Jyotishi Kalyan Verma. He says even Varahamihira has even not correctly introduced Yavana's principles, Yavana's rules for predicting the future. So he receives a criticism by Bhattotpala for corrupting or interpolating Vedanta Jyotish dictums, the principles of Vedanta Jyotish. He is also condemned by another Jyotishi, Kalyan Verma, who happened into my place, Riva in MP. Brahmagupta also spent a good time in Riva during the rule of Vyagrapada, the first king of Riva dynasty. That is also, Riva is also a good place of astronomy. I come from that place. So he gets severe criticism, severe criticism from Kalyan Verma, from Bhattotpala, both. So it is not like his interpolations were not realized by the scholars who happened around 200 years or 300 years after him, because it takes that much period of time to realize the interpolations, the truti. His commentator Marichi also realizes the truti, and though he does not explain what is the amount of the truti or the anomaly, but he is aware of the truti. Further, he Varahamihira has no ending. During the time he was active and pursuing his career, 8 Siddhantas were available in his hand. What are those 8 Siddhantas, astronomical Siddhantas? 2 Siddhantas of non-Indian origin, Paulis and Romak, and Saur Siddhanta, which might have needed some amendments, but he got it pretty much, very much corrupted by interpolating Greek principles into it and presenting it as a Maya Surya Siddhanta. So Surya Siddhanta, Romak, Paulis, these are 3 Siddhantas, but 2 other Siddhantas, Vasist and Paitamaha, which was a form of Brahma Siddhanta. So these 5 Siddhantas were available to him. Along with these 5 Siddhantas, Shakalya's Brahma Siddhanta was available those days, and Savanak's Som Siddhanta, that was also available. Manuscripts are available. I have got the copy of the Som Siddhanta with me. Not only that, he also, as we know, historically it's proven, he had Aryabhatta's Arya Siddhanta on his hands. He ignored Arya Siddhanta, Som Siddhanta, Saunak's Brahma Siddhanta, but remain focused on the five only out of eight, only five, and from these five, he condemns our indigenous Siddhantas, Vasishtha and Paitama Siddhanta. He says these are dual vivastra. These are the inaccuracy in these two Siddhantas is so much that it can be realized from a distance. From a distance, you need not go to into details. Just by watching it, having a cursory view of these indigenous Siddhantas, you can realize the amount of inaccuracy. Dur vibrastau. Okay, and what are they accurate in his view? In the scale, he mentions Romak Siddhanta, that is good enough, Paulus Siddhanta accurate, and his own Surya Siddhanta is the most accurate. And accuracy in what terms? Accuracy, according to him, existed in the computation of the tithi. Paulus tithi, his photo. Photo means it manifests correctly. Isput means manifestation. Brahma Gupta also uses this word, Brahm Hisput Siddhanta, that he calls, he gives the name to his Siddhanta. Okay, so what is the Tithi? Tithi is a magnitude of 12 degrees between the longitudes of in angular longitudes between Sun and Moon. So range of 12 degrees marks one Tithi, the completion of Tithi, then another 12 degrees will have another Tithi for us, then further it goes on. 12 degrees, 12 degrees, 12 degrees. That slab is 12 degrees. So this 12 degree does not require such a critical mathematics. But Varamihira pretended use this concept of tithi to malign the indigenous Siddhantic traditions. The attitude of self-demeanor, and self-negation, self-denial comes from the Varamihira. He is the first person. He might have been interested in creating an image of liberal by projecting his exposure to the international astronomical traditions, the Yavanas. He might have thought it helps, that's why he would have done it. Otherwise, there is no reason. Because I will show you in the next slide. Let us see. Here, it is the Vasisht Siddhanta which recommends using the astronomical instrument Gnomon for creating the Tithi, for determining the accuracy, for arriving at a arriving at the correct amount of the Tithi, the occurrence of the Tithi. It is the Vasisht Siddhanta that recommends rely on the measurement, rely on the instruments called Gnomon. He is the person. I mean, if Vasisht Siddhanta are his followers, we cannot be sure, but it is in his tradition the horizontal Gnomon was introduced, the idea of horizontal Gnomon. Otherwise, everywhere you will find the vertical Gnomon and sundial. What is the utility? What is the advantage of horizontal Gnomon? Anywhere you can have it. It's simple. Even at your houses, you can use a stick aligned to the sun's motion, and every day you can watch by using the gradation of the time in 24 hours, or according to the tithi and other system, other parameters. Yeah, every day you can have the time calculation by using this horizontal Gnomon. But he accuses Vasisht Siddhanta that it is dur vibhrastau. He does not remain limited to accusing the indigenous Siddhantas, but he also goes on demolishing the scholars of his period, who were contemporary to him or who occurred just before him. One of the person is the great astronomer of his period is Bhadra Vishnu. It is somewhere mentioned as Vishnu Chandra also. He laments, Varamihira laments that his work is not able to compute the tithi. Still, it is popular. Vinivrittate, not obsolete, but it is used. Why it is obsolete? No, he was wrong. There was no such incidence of this work of Bhadra Vishnu, uh, not able work of Bhadra Vishnu not being able to compute the tithi, the duration of tithi. There is no such evidence if we go by the astronomical history. If we scan the work of work of Aryabhatta, work of Brahmagupta, and the work of our person in hand, where our and today's talk is focused, the Varahamihira. Actually, what did this Bhadra Vishnu or the Vishnu Chandra? sorry, sorry, he edited he edited the available texts of Romak and the Paulist Siddhanta. And Varahamihira might have been jealous about his popularity and the work. Then so Sri Sen also edited the Yavana Siddhanta, the Romak Siddhanta. Varahamihira, applauds the Yavana Siddhantas, Romak and Paul Siddhanta, but he does not appreciate or admire Sri Sena. Similarly, he mentions Latacharya, but he does not admire him. All his admiration goes for the Yavanas, whether Romak or the Romans or the Yavanas of the Greek, of the Alexandria. He does not um, uh, he does not leave anybody. He condemns Pradyumna and the Vijayanandi. Pradyumna for having error in his computation of the Mars position, and Vijayanandi for the position of the Saturn, but does not mention what is the amount of inaccuracy in their work, because no other astronomer, neither Aryabhatta nor Brahmagupta, they condemn these astronomical scholars of that period. And further, Aryabhatta, he also is he is so I would not say the crooked, but Varahamihira, he does not appreciate Aryabhatta also. Rather, what he does in his Panch Siddhantika, he accuses him, the Aryabhatta, for introducing uh, two different measures of the day, the complete day. One is from the beginning of the midnight at Lanka, and the other beginning from the sunrise at the Lanka. For this accusation goes to Aryabhatta. Not a single word of appreciation on the great contribution Aryabhatta. And this Surya Siddhanta and Varahamihira in his Surya Siddhanta uses the same half-chord series, half-chord sign series, which is first time introduced by Aryabhatta in Indian astronomy. So he accuses one innovator, the inventor, the Aryabhatta, who did the fundamental work in Indian astronomical traditions. He has no word for his appreciation, and then he mentions Simhacharya. So hope you have for the Aharganas, which is to begin at the sunrise at Lanka. So you hope you got the complete idea what kind of personality the great scholar, the gifted one, Varahamihira had. The first liberal, progressive, claiming to have international exposure, and such a person happened in 5th century Common Era. Okay, so let us do not bring Mayasura. I explained this, the horizontal gnomon introduced in the Vasishtha tradition, and such horizontal gnomons have been in use in India up to 18th century Common Era, till the arrival of British. Just a cursory view in the Paulist Siddhanta, not the Mayasura, but the Varahamihira makes a point to Yavantarja, to Yavanpuri, of the Yavanpuri, which is Alexandria, because the length, as I said earlier, the length of the year matches with the length of Hipparchus, who was also a resident of same Alexandria. Okay. Further, he is the person who introduced 35 Sanskritized Greek words in our Vedic tradition, our Vedanga Jyotish. I have picked up few. Heli Surya Chandrama, Heli for Surya, the sun. Heli is not a Sanskrit term, but they are very much influenced for his uh, fascination up to the level of madness. He introduced word Heli in Sanskrit. Not only that, he transforms the Greek word deknet to Dreshkana and it introduced in his Sanskrit verses. Not only that, apoklima and the name of the Judaical science without digging in our own tradition if Judaical knowledge existed in his own tradition or not. He went on further doing such kind of interpolations. 35 Sanskritized Greek words. I told you earlier, uh, by the time you arrive, the 12th chapter of Surya Siddhanta, you would see mention of Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Aniruddha, this Dwapar Yuga incarnation of Bhagwan Vishnu, while he discusses the formation of the universe. So from Krita Yuga to Dwapar, in the same work, and his learning is continued. Nobody knows what happened to this deputy, the shadowy deputy of Vivaswan. He was still teaching. What was he teaching? So what happened to the astronomical knowledge which is contained in the book of Mahabharata already? You will find no answer. That's why let us not depend on the mythologies. Let us dig up the mythologies and find out the rational figures, the rationality out of the mythologies. That should be our way of studying our history. Hope you understand. Also understand those who are after it. So, Varamira Surya Siddhanta is a source to numerous problems, confusions, controversies, interpolations. Actually, his work, Surya Siddhanta, demolishes indigenous Indian astronomical traditions. That is the finding. Still, we will appreciate him for his knowledge. Really, he was a gifted person, but the intention was not nice. His own temptation for early accumulation, early acclamation of the elite class, early patronage of the royalty that he received by King Dravyavardhana, aiming at these benefits, he might have done all sort of things which were not required. Okay, it is all about the Varahamihira, and his interpolation is the beginning for the making our traditions, our history questionable. That is the point in translation of Surya Siddhanta. Note it down. Now I would be addressing the topic of the talk, which is Western week. In the Western week, the week is an ever-changing construct. The concept was never stable, integrated as we have here in India the concept of Saptaha. Week refers to group of 7 days. Remember it. It is very important. But not always it was 7 days. In the most recent times, also in the France, by the French government between 1793 and 1802, as you watch here, the 7 days week was abandoned because it was not well internalized in between 793 and 1802. They abandoned the 7 days week and adopted 10 days week. It was not internalized because it is not the indigenous concept. Similarly, the Russian government also abandoned 7 days week and went for the 5 days week. When 5 days week did not work well because no country can do the business in isolation. So they went for adding one more day in their week, thus 6 days week. 6 days week also did not work. So finally, in 1940, they added another day and readopted the 7 days week. This is how the 7 days week reinforced in Russia. The communists are communists. Learn very late. Okay, it is very important. Also, it is important for us to understand what kind of knowledge of astronomy, the basic knowledge of sundial and gnomon, they had in the early 6th and 5th centuries BC. There is a legend in the biblical Bible that there used to be a king Hezekiah lying on deathbed, and nobody wants to die. He also did not want to die. He requested the prophet Isaiah, and Isaiah came to him saying that the God has increased his life for 15 years more. Hezekiah wanted a testimony. He wanted to get it confirmed. So what does prophet Isaiah do is he puts two alternatives before him. See, there is a sundial, which is called sundial of Ahaz today. The whole story, the place of the whole story, the legend is Armenia. Again in news nowadays. It's Armenian story. So there was a sundial of Ahaz. Isaiah gives two alternatives to King Hezekiah, that you choose one, whether the shadow of the sundial can move further by 10 steps or 10 degrees, or it can be moved back in the reverse direction by 10 steps or 10 degrees. It's a magic, a miracle. He says his life is extended by 15 years, and in order to confirm it, I am going to make a miracle by the grace of the God. And the miracle was to uh, uh, to shift the shadow by 10 steps or 10 degrees, either in the forward direction or in the reverse direction. It was just a matter of shadow for them. Actually, they had no idea that it requires, for moving back, it requires our earth to move in reverse direction or in the forward direction. It would have created a havoc in the world. Complete solar system could have been collapsed if this has happened. But anyway, what this belief in this miracle, it suggests us that the idea of computation of the time based on the gnomon was an important idea. It was not their own idea. It was not the knowledge which is produced in the West. Had it been, they would have internalized and realized that this is impossible at all. So I'm not making a question on their belief, but I'm making question on the scientific part of this interesting story. Okay, so how we will have now a review of the week in Western tradition, in the early tradition of the European nations. A review of the week or week-like systems, all the systems and the study of the motivations for the 7 days, which unfortunately does not exist over there, and the system of hour. What does it mean by the hour? The word hour, the linguistic study, and the day lordship of the planets, which requires the knowledge of the planets and also the procedure for computing the day lordship. You understand? These are 4 points. The constituting factors to be certain that the idea of the week existed and it is indigenous to European traditions. Okay, so stay with me. First come first, the early Greek. In early Greek language, the word hour or the system of hour does not mean at all the hourly unit of time. Hour does not mean time. 1 hour, 60 minutes, the time of 60 minutes. What does it mean instead? Instead, it means seasons. In a year, there are 3 seasons. So that's why they believed they believed there are 3 goddesses for the seasons. Those goddesses were called Hore or Horai, 3 goddesses, and this is the uh, iconographic evidence in which a god Dionysus, Dionysus rather, he is leading the 3 goddesses of the seasons, Horai. It's a relief of first century Common Era, a Roman relief. So what we are saying, also endorsing with a corresponding evidence. That is what the Indology Foundation, that is where Indology Foundation makes a difference. No talks on the air. And also that these Hore or Horai has no connection to the planets. Clear? Hour does not mean hour. Hour has no relation to the planets. There was no planetary knowledge as such those times in the early Greek period. It is also confirmed by the etymological dictionary, which is published by the Brill in 2009. In the same dictionary, it is also suggested that the word hora or hore comes from a Proto-Indo-European stem which cannot be pronounced properly. You can read it. It is visible to you on a screen, H-I-O-H-L or whatever. And very interestingly, going by this new suggestion, the pi stem means ear. Hora means year, not the hour or something. Why this confusion? Because this is an important one. It's a basic principle of linguistics. When you receive a word, you do not have the stem or the root meaning, and it is reflecting here. They receive this word hour or hora from somewhere else. What is that place? The other place, that is our India. It's a Sanskrit word. Varahmira itself informed us. And the earliest reference to hour as a unit of time, it is also important for us to understand that it attested very late in the Greek in the Greek work, in the Greek text, and that for the first time it comes in the Galen's medical astronomy, on his anthology. Galen happened in the second century Common Era. Second century Common Era. By that time, in that time only the hour receives the meaning of hour, hora and horai. So it also shows the Greece used to receive Indian ideas since the beginning, and the reception kept continuing. By the second century Common Era, they could realize that they could interpret hour in the form of hourly unit of time. So the reception, which started much early, maybe before say 6th and 7th centuries, before 6th and 7th century BCE, and the reception continued up to the period of Galen, the 2nd century Common Era, 800 years. There are certain Buddhist theories, Buddhist tales, legends, which also travel to Greece. In one of the previous talk that I had demonstrated how the Indian monkey moved to Greece, and it is depicted in a cave art in the second millennium BCE. A second millennium BCE cave art. Our Indian monkey, the langura, is depicted over there, which clearly shows the migration of the knowledge, the transmission of the knowledge from India to Greece. Also, in the same talk, I think I have demonstrated how the Vedic goddess Ida, now goddess of the Rig Veda, the faith in this Vedic goddess Ida moves to Greece, and there is a mountain in her honor, her regard after her name, Mount Ida. Okay, so there are clinching evidences that they had been receiving our ideas, our knowledge since the antiquity, unknown antiquity, maybe the second millennium BCE. By that time, we had here in India the Indus Valley civilization. So hold on, I would make it faster. But we have to. I want you to know about this person, Aristarchus. He really did a fundamental job. He is the person in the Greek astronomical tradition to compute the angular distance between sun and the moon, and arrived at a value which is nearly correct, 87 degrees. This is what he calculated. The actual value, the modern value, is 89 degrees. Something pretty interesting to know about this Galen. You may understand that the superstitions are not only created in our tradition in India, it may be created everywhere. What Galen said does it. He introduced a medical month by combining the sidereal month of moon and the synodic month of the moon. Two systems, a nakshatra based system, and by the progression of the moon in circle. So combining these two systems, sidereal and the synodic, he introduced a medical month. But that was an impossibility. And what he wanted to achieve by introducing medical month, he believed if a disease arrives at a particular constellation, the disease would go aggravated. It become bad and bad, worsen. It will be worsening on the certain configuration of nakshatra while moon moves over them. So that was his belief, and therefore for that purpose he conceived a medical month. He did not rely on the test, on the cure, and the medical science. He relies on this idea. And the source of his idea is nothing but the Babylonians' knowledge. So Greek is over. Now let's have a quick review of the Romans. The a, a correct calendar of 12 months period could have been introduced in Roman Empire very late. It is as late as 321st Common Era by the Emperor Constantine. In early Romans had a year of 304 days, 10 months from March to December, and comprising of 38 weeks, and each week was of eight days, not the 7 days. And ninth day was called non-deny. Okay, it has an importance. Please note it down. You should always remember the ninth day was called non-deny because it is a marker, a pointer that points to Indian origin of this number. Non-deny, ninth, navam, non-deny. Latin, it is the Latin poet Marcus Magellanus who wrote the text Astronomica in 30th Common Era, and that is the first time when we find a description of zodiac. So it says, not before the 1st century BCE, Europeans had any knowledge of zodiac, any knowledge of the planets, to be able to form the day lordship, following which the days are given name, the days of the week are given name. Okay. Not only that, we will also look a closer look of the Jewish and the Hebrew biblical traditions. In the Jewish, for the Jewish, their week started on the Saturday evening, which is called Sabbath. And Jewish days were numbered, like day 1, day 2, day 3. They had no names. So what it suggests us, rather clarifies, the name of the days of the week may not have any origin in the Jewish tradition, in the Hebrew tradition, in the biblical work. You got it? And we have explored so much, but before us, around 100 years ago, 92 years ago, this gentleman, Fourth Ringham, he expressed same thoughts. Rather, he advocated that the three Babylonian astronomers, Sidonus, the other name is not readable, Neburianios, Neburianos, yes, Neburianos, and the Sudines. These three astronomers should be placed in the category of Hipparchus and Ptolemy because they are the original producer of the knowledge. It is by using their knowledge, these gentlemen, Hipparchus and Ptolemy do do their make the could produce the treatises on astronomy and the astrology. So a great appreciation to uh, fourth fourth Lingam. After 10 years, another person, another scholar, Copeland, also came up with the same idea. He says the venerable time period recognized by the later Roman Empire, the same thing which I said, in the beginning of the 4th century AD, the Common Era, the astronomy, the planetary astronomy was introduced into Greece and Rome. Look at this circle. On something on the Hipparchus, it was the Kugler who noted around in the beginning of the 20th century that Hipparchus could not have worked on his own because he did not have the luxury of the historical data. Okay, the historical data to compute the precision of equinox was not available. He received from the Babylonian astronomers' work. And when Babylonians learned about the planets, Venus, the most lustrous planet, most bright, the brightest one, they noted it is noted in around 2nd millennium BC by them, and all other planets make first appearance in Babylonian records very late, around 6th century BCE or the 7th century BCE, not before that. During the period, this Nebuchadnezzar, Nasir is not an Islamic word. They have received it from the Babylonian traditions that antiquity and adopted it as their own Arabic. Now it is called Arabic, understood as Arabic name, but it's not. Okay, so not before 6th and 7th century BCE, Babylonians had sufficient knowledge of planets to be able to form the week in the same order of planetary lordship of the day. When the transmission happened from Babylonia to Greece, it is around 280 BCE, the 3rd century BCE. A Babylonian priest in the Greek language, Berosus, he traveled from Babylonia and started living in an island of Kos, where he founded a school of astrology and started teaching. It is from his teaching the Greeks got acquainted with the Jyotish, the predictive astrology. New name of predictive astrology, the judicious astrology. They don't want to use predictive. So after his arrival in 280 BCE, the first exposure to Greeks came about the astronomy and astrology. Before that, there was nothing. Something on the Julian calendar, which started in 46 BCE by Julius Caesar. And in consultation with the astronomer, we must know the name of the astronomer as a tribute, our tribute to them. Alexandrian astronomer Sociagens. Okay, that much. Here, please have a look of the name of the days in English. Today we have Moon, Mercury, Venus, the planets, and the name of the days after those planets: Moon, Mercury, Venus, Sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. 18 names are almost the translation, but none of the names appearing in Greek and Latin have any direct connect with the Babylonian name of the planets. It is argued by the historians of astronomy that they received the knowledge of astronomy from the Babylonian texts by the work of the Babylonian astronomers, but the terminology clearly suggests they have not received These terminology, it is impossible to, we can understand it is impossible for receiving, for the argument's sake, what is being made. It is impossible to receive the knowledge, but not to receive the terminology. Getting me? It is impossible linguistically, but this impossible is made possible by the world historians of astronomy. We must understand it. Further, we'll go further. This is all about Greece, Romans, Egyptians, Hebrew tradition, the Jewish ones. Now we will have a look of Sanskrit text. What is the day? In the European languages, day does not mean day, right? Because it's a borrowed concept. What they could imagine is the day for them means to burn. Burning which occurs in the hot seasons. But day does not mean burning. It's the duration of the sunlight falling on the earth, falling down on earth. They do not know. There is a basic misunderstanding. The sense of misunderstanding, it is a very big one. So they do not, Europeans did not have knowledge of the day. They learned about the day from somewhere else, which could be Sanskrit. I will take it up further. I have presented how what does it mean in different languages of Europe spoken these days: German, Icelandic, Norwegian, Danish, Swedish, and Dutch. All in none of the languages, day means day. Okay, the Proto-Indo-Europeans, and the Proto-Germanic linguists, they say the day has its origin in unreadable root. You see, from the same from that root derives is the same meaning of to burn. Similarly, it is for the week. The week does not mean the unit of 7 days. None of the European languages week has a meaning of week. Modern days meaning of 7 days, because it's not their construct. They received this knowledge from somewhere else. That's why they do not have their own word, the indigenous word. It for them it is to turn something, turn or to bend, which does not come even nearer to the adopted meaning of week, the 7 days week. But our investigations have let us know that they had got the word for the 7 days, which does not translate into as synonym of the week. What are the words for the 7 days? Hebdomas in Latin, and an alternative form of it is the abdomus, hebdomeda. If we study the origin and history of the ancient Greek, that means 7. So hebdomadas, hebdomas, abdomas, hebdomada. These 3 words points to the hapta or the shaptaha, right? Indian saptaha. Sometimes this hapto also here said it is indicates in their system the period of 7 years, not the week always. But the Roman term saptamana, saptamina rather points out that a clear-cut Sanskrit origin. Nowhere you will find the Babylonia here. All right, no Babylonian terminology in the European languages. That should be the takeaway for you. Now, in our tradition, if we do also have the similar amount of the inconsistency in our text, nowhere. Our record is very clean. The Vara, Vara for the weekdays in our tradition, the origin of the Vara is the Vashara. In the Shuddha Sanskrit, the pure Sanskrit, is still the Varas are written as Vasara, Som Vasara. That's why I wanted you to have, to become acquainted with the Panchangas, the traditional Sanskrit Panchangas, where you will find Vashara, Somavashara, Bhaumavashara, Guru Vashara, Shani Vashara, Ravi Vashara, is like that. And this word Vasar comes from the Rigveda. What is the Vasar? We get clear scientific definition in the Vasara, for the Vashara, in this mantra. It says, Jyotis Pashyanti Vasaram. The duration the people watch the Jyoti, the sunlight, that is that is the Vashar. I means during the period sun stays and provides us the light, that is the Vashar. Such a scientific value. Then Din, a good days, Sudin, that is available in the Rig Veda. We receive this word. The origin of the word is in the Rig Vedic period, and it repeats twice in Rig Veda, 3.8.5 and 7.11.5. Sudina Bhavanti Sudinitve. They had an idea of good days. Sudin. Then Ahar. Ahar, why it is important? Because it is the origin of the Ahoratra. So in order to form the word Ahoratra, by conjoining the day and the night part of it together, Ahar is required. Ratri, we know about it. Ahar also has gets its origin in the Rigvedic period. In this mantra, it is suggested Ahar Ahar Jayati. Maasi Maasi Satha means day by day and the month by month. Deva Dadhire Habyavaham. We should perform the sacrifices, the Havan. We should do the Havan day by day, month by month. Clear? Then the Dew. Dew is the by. If you look up in the sky, you will find at the mid region, the brighter part, the mid region, the bright mid region, that is called Antariksha also, that is Dew. We have no inconsistency. Everything falls in consistent manner. That is the beauty of our tradition. Now, I would like to remind you the etymology of the Ahoratra. Fortunately, our scholar of the day, Varahamira, had this integrity that he informs us in his work, Brihad Jatka, that Ahoratra is derived from the word. The Hora is derived from the word Ahoratra by dropping beginning and the ending A. Beginning A and the ending A. Ahoratra, Hora. And then further, the dissection of the Ratra happens, and this stem, the remaining stem Hora is taken to denote both day and night. This is historical evidence. If you go through the Parasharas, Brihat Parasar Sangita, you will find same definition. So not by the Varahamira alone, but by the Parasara system also, we get the same information, so we can rely on it. Okay, dropping A and dissect, it became Hora. What is the value, historical value of it? Historical value of it in our astronomical text, Siddhantic or the predictive Jyotish text, if we find a word Hora, we can definitely, for good amount of certainty, we can understand the texts were amended or edited in the 4th or the 5th century Common Era. Okay? And the Jyotish work or the text who does not have Hora included in the narrative, those are texts or were formed much early before this transition, the interpolation or the import of the word from Greece to India happened. But we should also remember Ahoratra went to Greece, it became Hora, Horei much early in the early centuries of the Common Era, maybe 3rd, 4th or 5th centuries BCE. It might have taken 300, 400 periods of time from Ahoratra to become Hora, shortened from Ahoratra to Hora. So we gave them Ahoratra and received Hora and Horai. Further, it is very important, and for the first time, if you refer any work produced in the West or the East, this information is not available that Babylonians also received the word to denote 6 and 7 from Sanskrit. For the 6 they have got the word shish and 7 sheve, a clear borrowing in their tongue. The, the pronunciation is their own, but the idea is of idea of it is the idea of ours which they have adopted. So we are the people who are the source for the 7 days. Even the number 7, we follow decimal number system. Babylonians mostly followed the 60, a number system based on the unit of the 60. Our number system is based on the unit of 10, right? So they followed the 60 number system based on the 60. We followed the number system based on 10. Still, they received our word, the decimal number system's word 6 and 7, to denote 6 and 7. Okay, it clearly proves for beyond any uncertainty or probable ambiguity that the Babylonians received the early knowledge of number system and the astronomy from India. I would not claim that entire Babylonian astronomy is borrowed from us. They were also a great civilization. They had intelligent people. They would have developed something on their own. But this 6 and 7, because it is related to the Saptaha, that is received from India. Further, as I claimed in the previous slide, the Greeks, if that is true, received the knowledge of astronomy or the week system from the Babylonians. They have not adopted the words. They words for the measurement of the time from the Babylonians. Babylonian words umu, which means which is equal to Indian tithi, the period of time, the as, unit of 4 minutes, and the beru. These words are absolutely absent from the Greek record. It says the concept is also not taken by the Greek. The early concept of astronomy was received from the India, along with the mythologies. Along in the same way, the Buddhist mythologies and the legends travel from India. The Mount, as the Mount Ada tells, the uh, the idea of goddess Ada traveled from India to Greece. Our monkeys traveled from India to Greece. In the same manner, the idea of astronomy, the early astronomy, and the an attitude, an approach to look up to sky and study scientifically traveled from India to Greece. Clear? Now our Indian records, because that is not enough. If it may be said that despite the early knowledge of astronomy transmitted from India to Greece, but the idea of the planets and the week might have been evolved in the Greece and which came back to India. But I would say it is also wrong, unlikely. Unfortunately, on our part, our historians of astronomy and the science haven't done a good research. What is produced by the Western scholars, they received the same thing, made a reference to the Western work, and created a superficial narrative that the week, the construct of the week, the 7 days unit, has got its origin in the Greek traditions or maybe the Babylonian traditions. Even the Hindi authors, Hindi lekhak like Gunakar Mule, he also believed it, and vehemently, he makes claims in his work, Hindi work on the nakshatras. Gunakar Mule, please find out. Look at his, find out his work on the nakshatras or the life of Aryabhatta. He was a prolific author, but not a good researcher. And our problem is we do not have good researchers. We have aggregators. Like I have produced this slide, this talk today. Somebody would watch it, would copy the ideas and reproduce it. This copy culture is what that kills our historicity. Varamira was no exception. So here, anyway, I have to present before you that in the in the Mrikshakatikam, the earliest, one of the earliest drama by the author Shudra, the playwright, he mentions the planets. You know, not an astronomer, but a literary person, the author. That means if an author knows the features of the planet, the impact of the planet on the life of a person, the native, that means the knowledge existed even much before him. Because these authors, the poets and the playwrights are the last people to adopt. It takes hundreds of the years for the adoption and introduction into the text, the work of theirs, the literary work. So Shudraka, which happened in 2nd century BCE by the author, the translator, author William Ryder, who did the translation of Mrikshakatikam in 1905, and 190 CE, I think it should be 188 CE, Common Era by H. Wilson, who translated Mrikshakatikam far back in 1826. What is the evidence? Shudraka composed a sloka. Kasyaastamo dinkarah, kasya chaturthasya vartate chandrah, sasthasya bhargava graho bhumisuta panchamah kasya. Means how a person lead a good life of luxury if he gets Dinkar in the Dinkar means sun in his 8th house, moon in his 4th house of the horoscope, Venus the Bhargava Shukra in 6th house, and Mangal the Mars in his 5th house. Bhumisuta Panchamah Kasya. How it is possible to lead a life of comfort? It says the idea of the horoscopes were prevalent, already in prevalence by the time Sudraka in the 2nd century Common Era composed this the play, the drama. And we know it by the Skand Purana. In the Skand Purana, time of Sudraka is mentioned. Trisu var Sahastresu, 3000 years, and another 300 years minus 10 years. That is his time. Means 3,209 years after Kali. After Kali Yuga. That is the earliest date in terms of the scale of Kali Yuga, much before Aryabhatta. Aryabhatta says 3,600 years after the Kali Yuga, but Skand Purana mentions first reference to Shudraka. Another aspect of this Shudraka is, this guy receives a name of Shudraka, the downtrodden Dalit name in our modern day terminology created by our leftist Marxist friend, but he is respected. Complete contrast to modern days idea of which is communicated with the word Shudra, the Dalit. He was no Dalit. Skand Purana regards him as Raja, the king. He was not a Raja or the king. He was an author, a literarian. He is regarded equal to Raja. That's why he's Sudrako Nam Viranam Adhipaha. He was a king, and he happened 3,290 years after the Kali Yuga. That is the earliest date in the scale of Kali Yuga. Charchitayam samaradhya lapsate bhabrapaha means he achieved widespread popularity. Charchitaram, he was into discourse, public discourse. Samaradhya lapsate, incomparable popularity he received Bhabrapa among the public, among the crowd. That is what Skand Purana description, Skand Purana tells us about the Shudraka. He was no Dalit. The word sutra did not have uh, derogatory connotations, derogatory connotations, no such attachment. Okay. Another reference to pre Varahamira period, um, pre-Hellenistic period also comes from the great Satvahana emperor, the Gautami Putra Satkarani's inscription of uh, Ajanta caves, the cave number 3, where it is says this king is liberal on the festive days. You know, he was a Brahmana king, but he was liberal. Unlike what is again projected by our communist friends, the anti-Brahman uh, feelings, because in their view the Brahmanas were quite conservative. But here we have a record that a Brahmana king was liberal on the festive days, unceasing festivities he used to perform, and in his praise, it is said that he is kind of equal to his glory is equal to moon, sun, nakshatras, and the planets. The earliest inscription record mentioning the idea and the knowledge of planets in the 1st century Common Era, when the Galen was learning and conceiving the idea of medical mythologies, medical month. So when they were learning, our people already had the knowledge, and they were mentioning in the royal inscriptions, in our drama, in our plays, also in our text. I would show you what are the religious texts where you will find a mention of planets. Very interesting, and certain things are coming for the first time to the public scrutiny. This was a great king, the Gautami Putra Shatakarani. You can watch his statue in the Amravati, the new one in memory of this great king. And very important to understand this coin on his victory over the Nahapana, the probably the Shaka king in Nahapana. He did not waste his money and the effort or the time. He overstruck it. He overstruck on the seal of coin of Nahapana. He overstruck it and got inscribed his own name. He was such a intelligent king. Left indelible record of victory. Okay, the Gautami Putra Satkarni. In his coins, you may find the figure of a boat, Satvahana king's coins. Now, the first evidence of planets, the earliest evidence of planets in huge antiquity. The first reference to planets comes from Taittiriya Brahmana to the 7 grahas, and the date of Taittiriya Brahmana is between 1000 BCE to 1800 BCE. 1800 BCE, before the reference made in any part of the culture, whether Babylonians or the Greek or the Egyptians or the Javis one. In Taittiriya Brahmana, we find Sukra Graha Grihante. The first is the Shukra, the Venus. The same Babylonians also mentioned. They also identified the Venus as the first planet because it's brighter one. But Shukra is not the first one here. In the Rig Veda, we find Jupiter, the Brihaspati, Antarikshe Jayamana. That is what is in a hymn mentioned in the Rig Veda. So 7 planets. This particular set of verses is very important because Sapta Etak, the Sapta Graha, Grahya Grihanti, the first mention to 7 planets. The idea of the knowledge of the 7 planets gets expressed in these mantras of Taittiriya Brahmana. For the first time, we have the pride to share it with our Indian people, our historians, scholars, students. This is the first evidence, first sharing, first citation in the history of Indian astronomy. The first one that Indology Foundation does it for the citizens of our Indians, the first mention of 7 planets comes from the Taittiriya Brahmana. Also, by the time the Taittiriya Brahmana was conceptualized and composed, we have developed the knowledge of the idea of zodiac. Okay. Also, some traces of it are available in the Rig Veda, in Rigvedic hymns. Some other day I would take, but it is very important to understand what is suggested in these mantras. The idea of zodiac. It is not an idea which is borrowed from anywhere. Only thing, the evidences were not known, and we have tried to share without any fear. Those who wants to copy, please copy. Spread it over. It is my country, the rich tradition of our India, that should keep circulated, keep circulating it. So what this mantra, this shloka, this mantra suggests us? Te nachatram upatishtant. Prajapati pasoon srija. Prajapati created the animals. Those animals, what those animals did? Those animals were aligned to nakshatras. Right? In an allegoric way, it is said, by aligning the nakshatras, by visualizing nakshatras, the idea of the animals got created. And it goes up to what? It goes up to the Revati nakshatra. Te Revati upatishthant. From the beginning of the nakshatras, which is Ashwani in this cycle, from Ashwani to Revati, by visualizing the nakshatras in a different manner, they develop the idea of Pashu, the zodiac. Zodiac means Pashu in Greek language. This idea traveled from India to Greece. They used their term. They received the concept in their own manner. Right? So we have our indigenous record, undisputed record, clear record of having the knowledge of planets, 7 planets, having the knowledge of, a reference to the evolution of zodiac in our tradition. Now further the Saptaha. Okay, for the Saptaha, we have another reference coming from the Garga Samhita. This piece of evidence is provided to me by a friend, a well-wisher of mine, Sri Pathakji, who received a piece of manuscript of the Garg Samhita from the possession of Cambridge University. And here I have, circled the respective person. The Paramagati Chandra Nachatra Taranam Grahanam Bhaskarasya Jyotisham. The reference to the knowledge of Chandra, Nachatra, constellation, Graha, the planets, including the Bhaskara. Okay, Bhaskar means sun in Sanskrit. Further, the Ahoratra Vibhagas. It is said that it is the Garga who divided Ahoratra, the length of the day in terms of the Ahoratras, division of the day in terms of the Hora, the planetary lordship. That is done by Garga Samhita. If we believe this reference, undisputed one. Okay, so we conceived the idea of the zodiac by the time Taittiriya Brahmana was getting composed. After that composition of the Taittiriya Brahmana, because Taittiriya Brahmana is the earliest, belongs to earliest school of Yajurveda, earlier than the Shukla Yajurveda. Bhagwan Ram is said in the Ramayana to belong to the Taittiriya school. That is the antiquity. So Taittiriya, talented astronomers of the priests of the Taittiriya school, they conceived the zodiac by looking at the nakshatras We have zodiac, we have 7 planets, knowledge of the 7 planets. Now we get the evidence of from the Garg Samhita for the division of the day according to the Ahoratra, division of the day. This is where the idea of the lordship of the planetary lordship of the day comes. This evidence fills the gap, needed gap. Such is the important. And then finally, the Saptaha. Saptaha gets its reference in Tandya Brahmana. Another name of the work is Panchavinshati Brahmana. You see, Saptaha Vam Yate. Twice it is said. And then in the Jaimini Brahmana also, Athayate Saptaha Bhavanti. It is very much, pretty much Indian, and has been the idea of the Saptaha has been in tradition. It was running since the period of Brahmanas. Actually, Tandya Brahmana suggests that after 6 days they wanted to have a day for the rest. That was another ahar, another day, and when it got together, the concept idea of Saptaha was born. Saptadha Vibhajya. And who did this? The concept of Saptaha was introduced by Jamdagni. So Jamdagni is the innovator who made the system of Saptaha, a pride which adds to us, and we are sharing to you for rediscovering this. For the first time in Indian history, this discovery is being made by us in the for the us at Indology Foundation, for you, for my countrymen. So Jamdagni is the maker of the Saptaha. Earlier we also established, we also provided the similar evidence for the maker of the month, who is the Atri. We created a video of 4-5 minutes. We'll extend it further with the additional set of information that we received on a later day. Getting me? Maker of the month is Atri. Maker of the Saptaha is Jamdagni. The divider of the Ahoratra is Garga. Everything is in sequence. And the idea of zodiac was conceived in the by the Taittiriya school of astronomers, or the priests, the rishis. Okay, and the first reference to planets, 7 planets, comes from again the Taittiriya Brahmana, Taittiriya schools. They are Taittiriya Brahmana. So these are clinching evidences. Everything is Indian. Nothing has come from the West or the Greece. Only thing we had a Varahamihira. We had a Varahamihira who had no knowledge of the ancient Vedanga tradition. He was not a well-read person. He was a clever, ambitious one, the man who wanted to have early acclamation for his work. So he created a mythology. He interpolated Yavanatom, which was nowhere required, and degree of interpolation, and the lack of integrity of this person's ideology is such that he interpolated the list of the founders of the Vedanga Jyotis and put Yavanatom there in the very beginning, even before the Parashara, name of the Parashara and Garga. He interpolates the list of our founders. And this person, for the ignorance of our friends who are really committed, but because of the high degree of ignorance, they are glorifying Varahamihir, his work Surya Siddhanta, taking it back to 16,000 BCE by misinterpreting the certain verses. It is it is something that we cannot recommend. Not a commendable job. Now Vara in terms of the planetary lordship. Now the first reference comes from the Atharva Jyotish, a work of pre-Hellenistic astronomical era. Vara Astas. The Vara has got 8 features. In the next verse, I would say, here the clear mention of weekdays in the same sequence we find from the Graha Shanti Prakarana of Yagyavalkya Smriti, Surya Somo Mahiputra, Somaputro Brihaspati, Sukra Sanachra Rahu Ketuveti Grahasta. One enthusiastic scholar, who is, turning our astronomical history upside down. And unfortunately, he happened to create a great fan following because nobody is serious on making a concrete research. In their hurry for doing something new and recognize for something new, doing something new, they misuse the mythologies available in mythological part of our text. They have no time to undertake serious researches that can withstand the intellectual attack, intellectual criticism. These are the evidences that nobody world over can make a challenge. Surya Somo Mahiputra Somaputro Brihaspati Sukra Sanachara Rahu Ketu Steti Graha Smrta comes from the Yagyavalkya Smriti, a text dated by the mainstreaming historians to have been composed in the second century Common Era. So even if the second century Common Era, it is pre-Varahamihira, it is of pre-Varahamihira period, pre-Hellenistic period. By the time they received the knowledge of astrology, we had so many evidences. Sudrak's evidence of the first century, Satvahana King Gautami Buddha Satkarani's inscription. We have the Yagyavalkya Smriti as the having the citation, and then further as I have demonstrated. Our tradition is very rich, very, very rich, very profound, very strong, with no space for the inconsistencies. Again, from the same authority of this, Sapta Dinadipa, the reference to the lordship of the 7 days. Okay. Now I have a pleasure sharing with you the idea of Nakshatra Purus. Not only the idea of zodiac, the animals, the perception of nakshatras is forming or looking like an animal. Our ancients also imagined a human, a shape of human by looking at the certain constellations, and they named it as Nakshatra Prajapati. Chitra Sira, the Chitra Nakshatra forms the head of it. Nishtya Hriday, Uru Vishakha. Vishakha Nakshatra is the Uru. The thighs part. Uru may also mean the heart. Pratishtha Anuradha. These nakshatras, Hasta Chitra, Nishtya, Vishakha, Anuradha. These these nakshatras form the Nakshatra Prajapati. How it looks like? Look at it here. It looks like a person in the posture of Tadasana, doing Yogasana. And it is so important. Some idea of certain Yogasanas have come from the space, from the heavens. This is what Nakshatra Prajapati demonstrates. Now, what is the significance of Saptaha? Because it's a different unit. Saptaha more or less refers to the civil days, non-ritualistic days. But if it is civil day, our ancients wanted to synchronize the civil days, the non-religious days, with the religious days. So they formulated the Saptaha. That this is the hidden story. In a period of 7 days, every planet gets 24 times get the lordship of the day, a particular period. Like take for sun, as I have demonstrated, sun gets sun's lordship of particular time period repeats 24 times, and 24, the unit of 24 is the basic idea of Indian time reckoning. Our ghadi is of 24 minutes. Okay, so two systems. If we look at from now, look back from now, today's understanding, the both the systems, the civil system or the Savanade system, was synchronized with the religious idea of the day, the lunar days. Okay, a quick view of how old is our cosmological tradition. Where are the roots? A certain certain seals I have collected from the Indus Valley, produced by the people of the Indus Valley. Here you see in the first seal a mandala with a star and 8 petals, lotus petals. Another mandala with a star and petals, 7 petals, and then a complete circle. Another seal having 7 smaller circles uh, in the external periphery of the a larger circle. Clearly, it shows the knowledge of the 7 planets. Otherwise, what could be the motivation? And it is all published. It is taken from the research work produced by M.N. Vahia and the Nisha Yadav, and it was produced in 1991, not now. How many years ago? 30 years ago, 29 years. We have a sketch, astronomical sketch coming from the Burj home, Kashmir, in the of the same period. I would like to remind you the legend of Orion, the Mrigashira Rohini. So it happened around 2500 years BCE. The same our sky watchers understood the changes happening in the sky, the Prajapati, the Samvatsar moving toward, and they depicted in form of this sketch. The story is found in the Taittiriya Brahmana also. Here, the Orion you can see that's from the sky map. Some other references, and then this very interesting horn with 30 markers, which is found in a pot of Court Dizi. It's a Court Dizen pot. From the tip of the horn to the center of the middle point of the horn, there are 15 markers on each side, right? And the length of the marker increases as you move from tip to the center, other way. It's a religious symbol one, and the 30 markers must have some motivation. It is suggested by our historians of astronomy, particularly Mr. K.D. Abhyankar, that this design on the spot refers to 30 days of month, and I agree with this. Otherwise, what was the idea? And you can see the connect, the stars mentioned over there. It is known to the historians of Indus Valley that the horn symbol symbolizes the religious practice. Now, how the iconography of Nataraja evolved. I would like to see the one arc which is depicted in the seal of Indus Valley. Okay. You see how it is covering this this god, the religious figure, the mandala. And please look at the mandala of Nataraja. A research work produced by Nirukta Raghavan, who studied the stars of Orion constellation vis-a-vis the sculptures of Nataraja. It is her research which brings out the unknown truth by study of 274 I think 270, yes, exactly, somewhere 270 stars of this constellation, and by conducting such study and plotting the outer shape, the mandala, she found that 98.3% of the stars are aligning with the mandala, the outer mandala that you find in the iconography of Nataraja. And they have displacement. 98.3% of the stars have got the displacement is low, is 0.75%. It is like somebody has already drawn on the sky. By watching the sky, they got the idea, and this idea is running from the Indus Valley period to the classical period, first millennium common era. Such a wonderful work produced by Nirukta Raghavan. Kudos to her. And this what we have seen the presented by me is for the Gangadhar temple of Nataraja, Tamil Nadu. Right? So recently, a friend of mine, the part of our Indology Foundation presented, shared a tweet of Subhas Kak. Just today only, today's morning, he referred to this finding, but Subhas Kak does not bother to mention the name of the original researcher, Nirukta Raghavan. We don't do this. We should always honor the person who really discovers something. And the last slide, to the honor of Ram Chandra Lal, who in the year of 1850 written a treatise on the problems of maxima and minima without using the calculus. He knew that Indian students are new to the Western mathematics. They have difficulty in the in understanding of the calculus. So he used the algebraic method for calculating maxima and minima of a geographical of, of a geometrical problem. And he, by doing this, he becomes the first person in the history of Indian and the Western mathematics, the modern mathematics. He was the first person to develop the algebraic method for computing the maxima and minima situation. Right? So if we do a job, a meritorious job, the world recognizes. His book was published in London in 1850. Getting me? Such is the importance. Thank you. So this is all about today's talk. Hope you would have enjoyed it. It has taken a little longer time, but it deserved 2 hours. Okay. Thank you. This is this kind of work that we do here at Indology Foundation. The work, the solid work with corresponding evidences, unchallengeable work, no dilly-dallying. What we said is the kind of written on the stone, written on the rock solid things that what we produce. So keep watching. Pretty soon I'm coming with a talk on the ancient astronomical instruments. Ancient astronomical instruments. Our people were the first people of the world to measure the height of the objects by indigenous methods. Varaha, not the Varaha Mihra, Brahmagupta. He conceived the idea of tangent. By measuring the angle, the tangent, he was able to measure the height of the buildings. Not known. We know about just the sine series or the cosine series. And this idea of the sine and cosine series was first manifested in the work of Aryabhatiya, the same thing used by Varahamihira but attributed to Mayasur. Not the Varahamihira, the cunning one. Sorry, it's a wrong word. But we have to demolish this theft of the ideas. Let us be a culture who regards the original inventors, the innovators, the people who produce the ground researchers like us at Indology Foundation. Thank you.